Now we're going to move on to our next talk of the day. So next up, we have Samantha Ford joining us to present Advancing Gut Health Through Targeted Prebiotic Interventions. Samantha is the business director at AIDP, where she leads market development of specialty ingredients in the nutraceutical space. I'm going to turn the stage over to her. And again, you can post questions throughout the talk, and we will come back for those at the end.
Hi, I'm Samantha Ford, and I'm one of the business directors at AIDP, focusing specifically on gut health. And this is an area that I could talk about all day and still barely scratch the surface. But we'll see how far we can get in the next 15 minutes talking about advancing gut health through targeted prebiotic interventions. So the global gut health market is growing rapidly, and there is no slowdown in sight. Some of the key factors behind this are obviously increased consumer awareness around the microbiome linked to human health and disease. And that includes how the microbiome can impact drug metabolism and response to certain drugs, pharmaceutical drugs. Also, technological advancements have made it much more efficient and cost effective to diagnose and to identify any issues related to the gut, such as dysbiosis. And that is pertinent to clinical care as well as personalized nutrition. Along with that, there has been increasing consumer demand, especially in the functional food and beverage space, as consumers are looking on a day-to-day basis to include more gut healthy products into their life. And that has driven quite a bit of commercial investment and product innovation in that space. And then, of course, GLP-1 has entered the chat. A staggering 1/3 of US adults report knowing and hearing a lot about GLP-1. And that's pretty relevant because even if people are not consuming the drug, they're still having quite a bit of awareness around what it is and what it does, and some of the secondary and tertiary benefits and side effects and so on that are associated with the drug. Now, of course, 12% of the US population has reported taking a GLP-1 at some point, with 6% of the population being current users. Drug adherence is statistically low. It drops to less than 30% typically after 1 year. And much of that is associated with the cost and the unwanted side effects associated with the drug use, as well as some of the gaps between treatment expectation and actual outcomes. But what's interesting is the shift in consumer behavior for foundational nutrition, specifically looking at more protein intake, much larger focus on gut health and overall foundational wellness, is really being driven by that GLP-1 trend. And as it relates to gut health, there is emerging evidence that is consistently linking the interconnectedness between the gut microbiome and GLP-1 metabolism. Now, it's no shock that over 1/3 of the population knows and hears quite a bit about GLP-1 based on some of this industry data from our friends at the Industry Transparency Center, where they polled a couple thousand people and asked various questions surrounding the functional food and beverage and nutrition space. And when asked what are the sources of functional food and beverage and nutrition advice, most respondents came back and said friends, family, and media. So if your friends and family are talking about it, you're going to be involved in that conversation. What's also interesting, though, is prebiotics are getting quite a bit more attention. I love this data that comes from a state who they use AI, basically an AI model, to look at trends and detect trends early based on Google and social media search, specifically TikTok. And they say Google is somewhat of a digital truth serum, because what consumers are afraid to ask their friends and family about, they're not afraid to go ask their search engine. So it gets a kind of a peek behind the curtain about what people are really curious about. And prebiotics and gut health are one of the largest growing categories in terms of the just consumer curiosity. So some of the biggest search queries are around general gut health, how to improve gut health, the best supplements for gut health, and the differences between prebiotics and probiotics, and especially as it relates to weight management and metabolism. So again, that's so in line with all these other areas that are trending. And again, in line with that general consumer understanding that the gut is linked to so many other facets of health, whether it's digestive, metabolic, gut, brain, and so on. Now, from a research standpoint, there is a bidirectional relationship that has been consistently shown between the gut microbiome and GLP-1. It's almost a chicken and egg situation has sort of been unveiled in this. You have people who are taking GLP-1 drugs that when analyzing their microbiome after treatment, a couple of things have consistently emerged. One being that the microbial profiles of the drug users can actually almost predict how well they will respond to the treatment. And there are very specific gut markers that are associated with the better outcomes with the treatment. And vice versa, people who take GLP-1 medications actually have, at the end of several weeks of treatment, alterations in the microbiome that are very consistent with those responders. And those that have the greatest shifts in kind of that microbial diversity with the treatment tend to have also the stronger responses to drug treatment. And this makes sense when you consider how GLP-1 metabolism naturally occurs in the body and how strongly linked it is to the gut microbiome. In essence, GLP-1 is secreted via metabolites that are produced in the gut, and that happens from a very specific group of microbes. Some key factors that have continuously showed up in the literature include microbial diversity. The greater the diversity, the better the metabolism, the healthier the GLP-1 mechanisms, and better blood glucose responses. Another key factor are the metabolites that are produced in the gut. Short chain fatty acids in particular, as well as secondary bile acids. The presence of those are very strongly linked with healthy metabolism. And those are correlated with very specific microbes. And those, the most relevant ones are some of the commensals, such as Akkermansia, Faecalibacterium prausnitzii, Bifidobacteria, and Bacteroides. And then another key factor is gut barrier integrity. Having a strong gut microbiome where your tight junctions are nicely lined up, not allowing for the passage of oxidants and harmful substances into the bloodstream. That's generally what led to inflammation and also kind of wrecks your metabolism. So having that strong gut barrier can help to reduce the inflammation in the body and also help to support those metabolic functions. So collectively, these are the key mechanisms that are identified and are areas of opportunity for formulation. So targeting these specific areas with functional ingredients, specifically prebiotics, could be very advantageous in developing products that are going to help meet consumer demand, especially in this space. Now, AIDP, this is where we really specialize. We have a nice range of targeted prebiotics that boost metabolic health. And one of the big lessons that we've learned over the years especially in this space, is, and probably one of the most challenging, yet most fun parts of my job, is taking what's generally very complicated science and translating that into something that's going to resonate with the consumer, and that they really help them to understand, the benefits, um, but without diluting the message down too much to where you're kind of swimming in the sea of, all the other ingredients that kind of look and sound the same. So we've really found ways to identify the benefits that have been clinically researched with our ingredients, and find a way to make that relevant and relatable to the consumer. And so I like to present really simplistic diagrams. So this chart here kind of breaks down some of our key ingredients and how they hit from both like a symptom standpoint as well as a mechanistic standpoint, some of those relevant targets to gut health and metabolic health. So we have our prefix, which is our xylo-oligosaccharide prebiotic. This one's great because it checks all the boxes from a regulatory and a clinical perspective, and it's FDA GRAS for kids 2 and up. And it addresses sort of both areas in boosting microbial diversity and short chain fatty acid production, and helps to strengthen the gut barrier. And also we have data showing improvements in gut motility and improvements in bloating and gas, especially in specific populations that are sensitive to types of foods. And we've even studied this and taken it further and looked at changes in metabolic health directly, such as improvements in blood sugar and improvements in blood lipids, and have consistently found that with XOS supplementation. So this one's great in that it really does tick all the boxes. Then we have Actazin, which is our green kiwi fruit powder. This one is a whole fruit powder and suitable for just about any population, as it's chemically unchanged from the whole fruit. And the nice advantage of Actazin is it has a quick acting effect. So when consumers take it, they feel that benefit relatively quickly, which is important in the I want it and I want it yesterday culture that we've sort of created here. So the data behind Actazin really addresses gut motility and bowel regularity and a lot of that symptom improvement. But we also have data showing that it can selectively alter the microbiome in a way that it creates an environment that's conducive to the growth of some of these chemicals like Akkermansia, and also boosting that short chain fatty acid production. And then we have Livox, which is a gold kiwi prebiotic that is patented for boosting Faecalibacterium prausnitzii, which is actually one of those species that has been identified specifically and called out specifically in responders to GLP-1 medications and GLP-1 metabolism in general. Those with the lowest levels of the Faecalibacterium tend to have the worst outcomes, and vice versa. Being an anaerobe, it's really difficult to supplement with Faecalibacterium prausnitzii. And one of the really only known ways to boost those levels is to selectively target and feed what you already have in the gut with that targeted prebiotic activity. And Livox is unique because it has a complex pectin structure that is unique to the gold kiwi fruit that selectively feeds that Faecali in the gut. And this ingredient has won multiple awards across the globe, and again, patented for this application because of this interesting data. And then we have Gut Guard, and that targets some of that upper GI. Similar to the Actazin, it really addresses some of those symptoms that people feel, and then helps with kind of a quick acting benefit. So this one really addresses the bloating, indigestion, heartburn, and it boosts microbial diversity, which has been shown in kind of a stress-induced dysbiosis study. So, and this one also has, being a licorice, it has those licorice flavonoids that are strongly anti-inflammatory, which again, hitting one of those primary mechanisms identified. And then lastly, we have Neogos, which is a high purity galacto-oligosaccharide, which has an abundance of literature behind its uh, diversifying effects for the gut microbiome, its immune boosting benefits, and its ability to strengthen the gut barrier. And the unique facet of NeoGOS is that it is a high purity, greater than 70% GOS, and it's low glycemic. And this was tested against other lower purity GLS in trials as well. So in summary here, I mean, it's showing something like this really paints a nice picture for how there is no one size fits all in addressing these mechanisms. And a lot of times this creates such an opportunity to develop unique products using unique combinations of ingredients and hitting both some of the mechanistic the targets that maybe the consumers don't necessarily feel right off the bat, but also including ingredients that can hit some of those targets of symptom improvement. So consumers can feel those benefits quickly, and typically it helps to encourage compliance with the product. All right, I think I hit any and everything I could in the short time frame. But to summarize some of the key points here, gut health and the microbiome do play a huge role in metabolic wellness and GLP-1 metabolism, including response to therapeutic interventions. And the GLP-1 market has shined such a spotlight on functional foods and beverages for foundational wellness, and this extends into users and non-users of the medication. Consumers are curious and they are primed. They have a strong desire to incorporate more gut health products into their day-to-day, and they have a particular interest in prebiotics. And this is a huge area of opportunity to educate consumers on the benefits of ingredients and also differentiate your products as you're formulating by including standout ingredients with clinical research and, that pack a punch with hitting some of those desirable mechanisms that consumers are looking for. And again, this is a growing area and white space opportunity. Formulating with the right prebiotics can help to boost that microbial diversity in the gut and promote those healthy metabolic functions that consumers are really looking for. So with that, thank you for your time, and we'll open it up for questions.
Samantha, we're asked, how do you evaluate prebiotic selectivity within the microbiome, and has this been clinically studied?
There are several standard ways to measure prebiotic and probiotic activity in the gut. In human trials, there are probably 7 or 8 different tests you could do that involve like genetic sequencing, basically evaluating stool of the participants, and you can test, before and after supplementation, and you can go down even to the DNA level and do tests to detect changes in the diversity of the microbiome, and even down to individual species and how those change over time. And then, there's also even preclinical models that you can do that stimulate the digestive system. And you can look at changes in the microbiome with particular supplements and even the metabolites that are produced. So yes, and we have that data on I think all of the prebiotics that I've mentioned today. So we've done those studies.
All right, great question. Your thoughts on prebiotics versus colostrum?
Prebiotics versus colostrum. That's a great question. I think that there's a place for both. Colostrum, obviously, my background is nutrition, so early life, and colostrum is crucial to development of healthy immunity and healthy gut function, gut barrier function. So I think those are very complementary to one another. I just think they're parallel.
All right, speaking of complementary, question about, have you evaluated your prebiotics in combination with probiotics or other ingredients?
Yes, we have. We've done preclinical work on our prebiotics in combination with a number of different probiotic strains to look at synergies and how they can maybe boost the growth and proliferation of those probiotics when taken in combination, and even have found that certain probiotic strains tend to favor certain prebiotics more, and which makes sense, based on if there's like the presence of polyphenols or other types of phytochemicals in the prebiotic as well. And we've also tested in clinical studies some of our prebiotics in combination, for instance, our XOS and our Kiwi, and have a patent on that combo. So, yes.
All right. And then one more question came in. Do you have examples of effective messaging around prebiotics and specifically with the link to metabolic health?
Yes. So I would say, given the complexity of the topic and just how primed consumers are for kind of this area, so obviously they have a basic understanding, but keep the messaging simple. It's going to obviously depend on your particular formula, the ingredients you have in there, and the clinicals that back that up. But in general, when you talk about the microbiome, just hitting the fact that, microbial diversity and these specific gut microbes are linked to better gut barrier integrity, less inflammation, helping to boost healthy metabolic functions. The same way, like the engine of a car, you need a well-oiled machine to kind of keep that revved up and running. The same thing goes for your GI and your internal health. So, yeah, I mean, and that's something that as we work with our customers and work on, some of their product concepts, definitely, we can help to provide that evidence-based support to craft that messaging.
All right, excellent. Samantha, thank you very much.